is time for the combat sports portion of Couch Potato Diary today. So much to talk about. It has been a fun week, breaking everything down from the UFC, getting ready for Naoya Inoue, getting ready for another big WWE event while AEW is trying to fight their way into that spotlight. So a lot to cover. Let's dive right in and start talking about some fights, as we got some fights to make coming out of UFC 311. UFC 311 is now behind us. It's time to look forward. So, what should be next for the Ultimate Fighting Championship and the stars of UFC 311? Well, let me tell you. We will start with the number one pound-for-pound fighter in all the land. It is Islam Makhachev. I think his next fight should be Arman Tsarukyan. Feels like we've had that before. A lot of talk about an Ilia Topuria fight. Topuria doing a good job of stoking those fires. And if that's the fight you make, there is going to be no complaining from behind this microphone. But I do feel like if you want to have a guy go into super fight mode as your champion, you should probably let him clear out the division first. And there is still one more fighter that I think still has earned that opportunity in Arman Tsarukyan. So I think that Tsarukyan deserves a chance. Now, do I see that fight going any differently than the one we just watched with Renato Moicano? I do not. But I do think that Tsarukyan still deserves that opportunity to get that chance. And if Makhachev is moving into super fight territory, like it does put Tsarukyan in a bit of a tough spot. Maybe it lets him, like Luke Thomas on Morning Combat was talking about how this could be a blessing in disguise because you have a guy who is now getting a chance to build up his skills a little bit more and maybe catch Makhachev when it's on the back end a little bit. So there could be a blessing in disguise here, but I do think that Arman should get the next opportunity at the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the Ultimate Fighting Championship on the men's side. The guy who just lost to him, Renato Moicano, his next fight, Beneil Dariush. Again, feels like we got some deja vu going on here. I think you just go back to the fight you were supposed to make in the first place. It'll be a good chance for Moicano to get back on track and to see what he learned coming out of that title loss, and it'll still, I don't want to say it was a nothing performance, because like we said in the breakdown, he showed at least a little bit there in the stand-up and creating a scramble. All it showed was that he is not the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. But I do still think that he needs to show that he deserves to be consistently in the lightweight title picture, and I think a fight with Beneil Dariush would do that. Or it shows that Dariush has what it takes to make one more run at a potential title opportunity for him. We move on to the bantamweight division as Merab Dvalishvili put on a show for the ages at UFC 311. I have his next opponent being Petr Yan. Yan has won back-to-back fights since losing to Merab in 2023, and I just don't feel like anyone else is ready for that title opportunity. I think you could put Umar back in there and have it make sense, but I do think that Yan is the one who is the most deserving of this opportunity right now. So, who does Umar get? If he is not going to get an immediate rematch, who should Umar Nurmagomedov fight in his next bout? I have him against Sean O'Malley. Let's just put the last two guys to lose to the champion in there together, and one of them gets a very much needed win to get right back on track and potentially back into a title shot right away. And the other one will have some soul searching to do a little bit. But both of them are big enough, either talent-wise or draw-wise, or both, that you can survive a couple of losses. They're going to need a couple of wins after that, but they can work themselves back into title consideration, I think, pretty quickly, following any kind of a loss there. So I think that is the one that makes sense to me. Last one here, Yuri Prochazka. I have him against the Jan Blachowicz, Carlos Ulberg winner. You're coming out of that, you're going to have two highly ranked fighters who I will think need to impress a little bit more to get back into the light heavyweight championship picture. And so I think that it is something that I think it's a fight that makes sense. And honestly, you can just do this tournament style where you then have why am I blanking? Jamal Hill, have him kind of split off, and he'll fight the loser of the Blachowicz-Ulberg fight in his next bout. So those are the fights I think that should be made coming out of UFC 311. But we got a lot of fun stuff coming up next week, getting ready for the UFC in Saudi Arabia as Israel Adesanya is back in the octagon. So we'll get ready for that coming up next week. But coming up very early tomorrow morning, for those of us here in the Mountain Time Zone, the number one pound-for-pound boxer is back. The monster, Naoya Inoue, is back in the squared circle. Let's break it down. Naoya Inoue, the number one pound-for-pound boxer, steps back into the boxing ring this weekend, back in Japan, as he is defending one of the belts that he has unified over the years. This time, the undisputed Super Bantamweight Championship is on the line. He is going to be facing Ye-Joon Kim, who is taking this fight, we should say, because of an injury. Want to get this exactly right. On October 3rd, 2024, thanks Wikipedia, it was reported that Inoue would defend his undisputed Super Bantamweight title for the third time against undefeated IBF and WBO mandatory challenger Sam Goodman in Tokyo, Japan on what would be our Christmas Eve. But 11 days before, it was reported that Goodman suffered a serious cut on his eyelid during sparring, and the fight had to be moved until January. In January, just 14 days ago, it was reported that Goodman withdrew from the bout due to the recurrence of his eye injury. He is replaced by number 11 ranked WBO contender Kim Ye-Joon, or Ye-Joon Kim. So that is how we got to this point for the monster, or Kaibutsu for those in Japan, as this is, he is exactly that. He is a monster. 31 years old, born in Kanagawa, Japan. He stands merely 5'5", but there is dynamite at the end of a 67.5-inch reach. He steps into the ring 28-0, with the judges only required 3 times. 25 wins by knockout. One of those came against TJ Donaghy, in September of 2024 with a 7th round knockout victory. He is the undisputed Super Bantamweight champion, defending it now for the 3rd time this weekend. His last 9 wins have come by way of knockout. He became the undisputed Super Bantamweight champion in 2023, beating Marlon Tapales. He also was the undisputed Bantamweight champion at one point in his career. The former Ring Magazine Bantamweight champion and former current Ring Magazine Super Bantamweight champion was the 2023 Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year. He also won the World Boxing Super Series Bantamweight tournament in 2019 with a win over Nonito Donaire. He is trained by his father Shingo, a former amateur boxer, and he has been a pro since 2012. The David to his Goliath is Kim, who is 32 years old, born in Seoul, South Korea, 21-2-2, with 13 wins coming by knockout. His most recent was in his last fight in May of last year against Rakesh Lakab, with a knockout in the 5th round there. It is back-to-back TKO wins following a majority decision loss against Rob Diesel in his USA debut. His last 6 wins have been by stoppage. His last decision was in 2016 against Yuki Strong. He lost the 2nd fight of his career. He actually started 4-1-2, then rattled off 15 wins in a row. He is the former IBF Asia Super Bantamweight champion and a pro since 2012. So it is obviously very long odds for him this weekend. It is going to be a very difficult test, going up against the best fighter in the world right now and a knockout artist. And you don't even really have the, oh, well, maybe he can outbox him, because that's not Kim's game either. I don't believe. Anyway, so it is, like I said, it is a long road for a potential upset here for Kim. Obviously, if you guys have been following all week, I have been gushing about how good Inoue is. But right now, if we just want to say, well, maybe there's a chance, every fight, whatever, Kim is at plus 1,600 if you fancy yourself that way. Inoue to win by knockout is minus 1,600 right now. It is, if you think this fight's going the distance, plus 750. A wild set of odds looking at this for Inoue. So let's look at this though. How does Kim shock the world? How does he pull off the upset? Well, no one's beaten Inoue so far, so we don't really have a roadmap to go off of there. The one thing that gives him a bit of a, I guess, edge or whatever is that he's not as much of a knockout artist as Inoue is, but he has at least the power to be able to do that, and the precision to be able to shock the world with a big punch here to maybe put Inoue away. And the other part of it is that I do believe he is a little bit bigger than Inoue. Oh, no, I'm wrong on that. He stands at 5'4". Apologies, my bad. Should have known that one already. But it is... like, the more you go over it, the more it's like, well, maybe he could do this, but Inoue has that. Well, maybe he could do it, but Inoue has that. It is a fist fight. One fist could land and shock the world, and it would be that way. But I would suggest that Inoue, understanding the situation that he is in right now, where he is facing someone who is taking this fight on 2 weeks' notice, and he is going in there against the 11th ranked challenger for one of the 4 belts that he holds currently, I would anticipate this being a fairly quick fight. I think that Inoue can go out and stop this thing early. I would imagine he just tries to Terminator walk through Ye-Joon Kim and pick up a win. Now, we thought it was going to be maybe a bit more one-sided in his last bout, and it lasted all the way to the 7th round. So maybe there is a little bit of a chance there for Kim to start winning the early rounds. But I think if you're the underdog Kim in this situation, you kind of just got to run at the buzzsaw and hope that one of the things that you land gets through there and just turn this thing into a wild brawl and hope that your punch is the one that lands first. From a gambling perspective, like I said, there isn't a whole lot of value here. If you are looking for some, like total rounds right now, under a round and a half is plus 400. So if you think Inoue is just going to go out there and just ba-boom, then there's an opportunity. After the 5th round, it gets into the minus 200s and whatnot. But like minus 450 you're minus 150 for 4.5 rounds, under 4.5 rounds, minus 115 for under 3.5 rounds, and then it's plus money for rounds 2 and rounds 1. So I think there's an opportunity to maybe sprinkle a little bit on there and get some value. But the obvious is that Naoya Inoue, I believe, is going to win this fight, and he is going to win it by way of Dynamite Explosion with another knockout win. So we'll talk about what's next for Inoue coming up, and for Kim coming up on Monday as we break all of this down. But it is now time to move into the world of professional wrestling, as AEW, speaking of Dynamite, they had their show last night, looking to, like I said, build some momentum and kind of get things back on track. There was a couple things I was looking for, and they didn't check every box, but it was still a pretty entertaining show, and one that I'm looking forward to talking about now. AEW Dynamite was back on television and Max, streaming yesterday. This was, it was a good show. There were a couple of things that I was looking for from it that I didn't fully get. I want to start, I'm starting with the negative, and I hate to do it, but they have obviously transitioned into the smaller arena portion of their existence currently, with ticket sales being what they are, which is fine. I think you need to do that, create that atmosphere. And last week, it was a unique setup with what they had out in Cincinnati. Like, it was a bit of a unique building. This week, it was just a smaller arena. And the problem is that they shot it like it was still a big arena. And like there are ways to shoot these things. Like TNA, say what you will about the Impact Zone and all of that, they kind of made it look bigger than it was at times. NXT, they never really perfected that, but there are ways that you can shoot some things where it's like, man, this is a big place. We really got this thing. Even Corcoran Hall is not that big when you walk in. It's on like the 6th floor of a building. It's not that big when you walk in, but it is shot in a way that makes it feel at least a little bit bigger. And there's some history with it too, and all of that. But this one, like they did all the like big wide circling shots that you would do at like Wembley, and instead they're doing it in an arena that can hold a few more people than my room can here. So it made it look very small. And I think they wanted to show like, hey, this place, like, as many seats as we put in here, there's a butt in all of them. And isn't that awesome? Look at all these packed seats. And they wanted to show that, but to me, it just really drove home how small the building was. And I don't think you want to be doing that right now. So there are ways you can get a little bit creative with your shots, and doing like a big, wide, this is the whole building shot, just made it look very, very small, in my opinion. And so that was my initial like, oh, this doesn't feel like a big time wrestling show right now. But then you see the performers on it, and it does. I really enjoyed the Ospreay Omega segment. I think they addressed everything, made the motivations make sense. You get a good brawl into the crowd, in the backstage, people go through tables, couple big moonsaults and all of that, and it sets up a tag match that I'm very excited about, with Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita taking on Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. I think you have a very, very fun setup there. That they have a like Omega Ospreay we hate each other thing going on, and then they are doing the enemy of my enemy is my friend, which they have done 100 times in AEW. But this one, all the motivations make sense. The whole story makes sense. So I have really no problem with what they are doing with this one. Then we get the Hurt Syndicate against Private Party for the AEW Tag Team Championships. It's what I said they should have done. I didn't think they'd actually do it, where this was kind of just a beatdown. Private Party had maybe a moment or two, but this was kind of just an ass kicking by the Hurt Syndicate to pick up the tag team championships. Private Party very obviously need a refresh now. They have been the same thing for 5 years, and it hasn't clicked really ever. And so they need a pretty big change, I think, because that is a group that has just kind of stalled, I would say. We get a Megan Bayne vignette. I like that. I think that she can be the real deal. I think that she has an interesting look. She has a great presentation of her character, and she has a fun in-ring style. So I think that there is a real something there with this particular character. Jeff Jarrett comes out of promo saying that he got down in the gutter with MJF. Then Claudio comes out, beats him up, and Jeff Jarrett's like, hey, I want a match with you, and if I beat you, I get a chance at the World Championship. And this is where, again, we run into the problem with this whole Jeff Jarrett thing, where, like, again, that there's Jeff Jarrett, inspirational story, best friends with Owen, going into the Owen, didn't quite get there, but man, he's a veteran and we love him. And we've seen him on TV for forever, and it's all great. And then he says that he was a better version of NJF. And then you quickly remember, oh, right, we actually didn't really like this guy for a really long time, because he was kind of shoved down our throats as the chosen one, and the Thousand Guitars Never Drew a Dime thing, and he's the number one guy in TNA, when like maybe a few other younger guys could have had that opportunity, and all of that. And so you're all remembering back in this moment that there were a whole lot of opportunities given to this guy that maybe we didn't want him to have, and this one might fall into that category again. It's a fun story to tell until you have to execute it, and like I don't want him to beat Claudio next week for a chance at the championship. I don't know how this ends in a satisfying way that isn't Jeff Jarrett didn't do it and he has to ride off into the sunset, being happy that he got a roll-up win for the ROH TV title. And that was the championship that he was really talking about all along. Like, I don't know how you really pay this thing off, because I don't want him beating Claudio. I don't want him beating MJF. I don't want him doing any of those things. But I also like don't want to see this just fade away. So it's a very weird story that they have kind of booked themselves into. And so I'm at least fascinated to see how they try to get themselves out of it. Swerve against AR Fox. AR Fox is just so much fun to watch, man. It's a really good match. Swerve gets the win, but the big part of it is that Ricochet comes running out with the scissors again, and Prince Nana chases him off with a lead pipe, which at the time I was like, man, if we're going to make Ricochet look tough, can we at least like make him look tough? And then we go to the back, and he is attempting to murder Prince Nana, as he has the sword. I keep wanting to say sword. The scissors to the throat of Nana, saying that they're going to fight next week, and Ricochet has a lot to get off of his chest. So good recovery from last week. It very much seems aggressive, but it is fitting this character, and it is the most interested I have been in a Ricochet feud and character in a very long time. MJF comes out. It's supposed to interrupt a Hangman Page match, and he comes out, and it's kind of a generic promo. He states the obvious with his intentions, that the reason that he was trying to buddy up with Jeff Jarrett is because he thought he was the easiest one that he could beat for a world championship opportunity. I'm happy they didn't go with the Owen stuff again. That's what we talked about last week. Really didn't love that that was the direction that they went with that promo a week ago. So happy that they went away from it here. But this one, like I said, MJF is good enough that we don't need that. Well, he also needs to show that because there was nothing here. There was absolutely nothing here in this promo. It was just to get MJF on TV. And then we get a bit of a stare down with Hangman Page because no one can just have one story at one time in AEW. But that would be an exciting feud to kind of set up once this MJF Jeff Jarrett thing is done. Hangman then gets a absolute ass-kicking win. Christopher Daniels comes out. Hangman gets the red in his eyes again, goes charging out. Daniels says, look, you win. Doctors say my neck's bad, so I'm never going to wrestle again. And there's obviously some conflict going on with Hangman Page. So I'm interested to see where this goes next. I have liked the Hangman character. I have said before that I think him just being super angry about everything, like being mad enough that you're going to put a needle through both sides of a guy's mouth when he set your house on fire. No, he just invaded his house, didn't set his house on fire. Wrestling, right? But that one I understand. But then he got just super mad at Jay White because he cost him a match once. And he had that same intensity. It's like, man, we need at least a little bit of a ebb and flow to this. You can't be as mad at a guy for breaking into your house as you are a guy for getting a roll-up victory over you. That's not how humans work. But so I have liked this new aggression. I've wanted a little bit of depth to it, and I think we're going to get that now. And I'm very interested to see where this goes. In the back, Mercedes Moné has apparently won another championship, and they're talking about who she may face in Australia. Harley Cameron comes out and plays a song on a guitar, and it's actually like it's entertaining. It's funny. Don't put her in that match right now. Like Mercedes Moné saying that she's never won a match ever on AEW. I don't want Harley to get one win and then all of a sudden she's challenging for the TBS championship. I think that's a step down for Mercedes Moné. So I am assuming there is going to be someone who comes in and stands up for Harley Cameron, and then they are going to challenge Mercedes Moné for the TBS title. But it was a funny song. It was a unique way to go about it. But I hope that this is not setting up any kind of a challenge or anything like that. I think that is skipping a few steps in the build for one Harley Cameron. Then we go to Julia Hart taking on Jamie Hayter. Sorry. Julia Hart taking on Jamie Hayter. I really liked this match. Good intensity from Hayter early on. Overall, a really, really fun match. Hayter does get the win, and so now the story they tell immediately is that they're tied at 1. Both have won at least one match. So that sets up a big third. Like I've said before, Hayter, I think, is a very important character for AEW, as they need a little bit more going in the women's division, and she was as going gets before she got injured. And they just haven't been able to find that magic with her again right now. This was better than the first match was, and it gets it going a little bit. So I could see her being the one to step in and help a Harley Cameron in going after Mercedes Moné and kind of build that up that way. But I do think that there's a little bit more that needs to be added. I do like the promo after from Hayter, adds a little bit more legitimacy to Julia Hart. After a break, we get a House of Black promo. Really does seem like we're sending Malachi Black off into the sun, which might be WWE or nothing. A lot of talk that he might just be retiring. But I think with Brody and with Buddy Matthews and Julia Hart there, I think this is a very, very interesting faction and a group that I think should really get up there in the tag team ranks. And honestly, I think Brody should have a significant singles run as well. But also, like, you see the reaction to him in Japan. Send this guy off for a G1. You know, like that is some of the stuff I want to see with a AEW New Japan CMLL triangle thing here. Don't just give me a couple one-off shows and have it be like, hey, look at this, great. Send, and don't have it just be, well, Ishii's here in Chicago for a week, so give him a match. Send guys off for 3 months. You know, like do a mini excursion. Send Brody off for a run in the G1. Send, like, you have so much talent that's barely getting used. And some of it on Ring of Honor, and that's fine. But if you're not going to use Ricky Starks, for example, yeah, go do 5 months in CMLL. Just go have a full run, full story, couple stories out in CMLL. Not going to be using Brody and them for a bit. We want to build up another mean, angry tag team. Yeah, go in the G1. Go have a tour that ends at Dominion or something like that. Like I feel like there is a lot more that needs to be maximized with this particular relationship, because right now, all of them feel kind of lesser than. And I feel like the only way they can build up right now is to all come together and try to build it that way. The problem is they've never really all done it that way, right? Like there's always had to be one that is above the other. Where AEW, okay, yes, you can bring your New Japan talent in. We're gonna sign them all, but you can bring your New Japan talent in, and we will allow that. And before it was Ring of Honor, they're trying to add some legitimacy, so they're bringing in the like Shinsuke and Okada and Tanahashi, and Ishii's their television champion, and they get to send a couple of their guys over for some fun matches in New Japan and at Wrestle Kingdom. And hey, we'll even give you some Bullet Club shirts that you can put on a couple of your guys and just fill your boots that way. But it never felt like they were equal. Right now, it feels like everyone's equal, and it doesn't feel like they know how to handle that type of a relationship. But I do think that there is a way to really maximize that. That would be a lot of fun for wrestling fans. We go to the main event. It is Pac against Cope. Obviously, the focus of this match and this story is going to be on the neck. Moxley cut a really good promo about that earlier in the night, and that was really the focus. Eventually, Copeland gets the win. He uses this TKO thing that, like, I think in theory, anytime there is a guy who is spinning around in the ring, it's like, oh, I'll spin a couple of times, I'll slam and get the crowd going. And you assume that it's going to be a, boom. And there's that. But I think it never looks as good as you think it is going to. And so this one just looked a little like, what is he doing? Oh, it's a cutter. Oh, okay. Oh, it's a win. Like, it always just looks... Honestly, it looks a little bit too much like dancing for it to be taken seriously as a devastating wrestling move. I have thought that when Brian Cage did like the little spin before he did his F5 and those sorts of things, and I thought the same thing here. The crowd wasn't into it at all. It gets him a win. They're trying to get over a new finish, and the way to do that is just to finish people with it, and sometimes you're going to get some dead reactions. I'm sure if they keep doing this in 3 months, it's going to be over like Grover. A pretty fun match. It was a bit more story than action, but it was a good match still, nonetheless. After the match, you get the Death Riders, who have apparently killed several people in the backstage area, and now they come out to the ring to attack Copeland. They do. Out comes James White. Out comes Jay White. He gets hit in the... and they beat them down, and that's how the show goes off the air. Overall, a good episode. Seeing on social media, and maybe it's just the way the algorithm is there right now, but seeing on Twitter that a lot of people are pretty down on this one. I really did enjoy this. I thought this was a very, very fun show, personally. And I think that, again, AEW is kind of building that momentum. The one thing I didn't get this week that I really wanted was, how does Copeland, Edge, Rated R, whoever, how does he tie in with this overall, the Death Riders are trying to steal AEW from AEW and fighting for the soul of it or whatever? We didn't get that this week. We didn't get anything from Cope this week. It turned more into just a regular world title feud or something like that. And if you want to switch the motivation over onto Death Riders, and it's like, we are fighting for what we think AEW should be, and you're in the way of that, so we're going to break your neck again and get you out of the way that way, then you can tell that story, I think, and have it be fine. I think you can do that. But I think you just need to tie this into the overall mission of the Death Riders and that overall story, because there's something there, and I don't want this to go the way of the Young Bucks EVP we're taking over thing, but now Tony Khan is back, and we're kind of just not going to talk about it, and now we're in this weird spot for a little bit, and now the Bucks are just gone. This needs to have a finish, and this needs to have a progression here, and I think we need to get that sooner rather than later. But man, they're good characters, and they're so great at what they do. So it'll be interesting. But again, I think it was a good show that progressed things a little bit. I just needed a little bit more of that messaging to get this one all the way across the finish line. Okay, let's now go to a preview of what is to come this weekend as WWE Saturday Night's main event goes down from San Antonio, Texas. So let's talk about it, shall we? Wait for it. WWE is back with Saturday Night's main event. San Antonio, Texas is going to be the site for the second Saturday Night's main event of this new era. Also a couple title fights to get ready for and all of that as well. So here is your Saturday Night's main event preview. There's a contract signing with Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. They were talking about an addendum in the contract, so these guys need to sign it with Shawn Michaels being there. It's in San Antonio. Shawn Michaels is tied with the ladder match. all three are going to be very entertaining talkers and all of that. So I'm sure we will get a fun segment. I'm interested to see what the addendum actually is, and what kind of comes out of it, because I'm sure it is going to be. I am anticipating it being a pretty big, like storyline thing to set up for the Royal Rumble next weekend. The singles match for the Women's World Championship. Rhea Ripley defends against Nia Jax. They heated this thing up pretty quickly. I'm still a little underwhelmed by it. Like, we just had this a year ago. It doesn't feel like Nia has progressed enough as a character to really justify this again. Now, she has won a lot since then. And I think if you had a little bit more time to tell the story, you could tell that. Like, hey, I won the Queen of the Ring. I won the championship. And yet I still had everyone telling me how good you were. So now it's time for me to take you out. Instead of, I'm here and I'm mean and you're not, so I'm fighting you. So I wish there was a little bit more with that. The match itself, I think, will be fine, but I do not anticipate this being a real threat to Rhea Ripley's championship. Braun Strowman against Jacob Fatu. This match is going to be awesome. I cannot wait for it. I would assume Jacob Fatu gets the win to continue to build him as this Samoan monster, but I think that this should be like a video game. Everyone just goes crash, bang, boom, and we get a really fun matchup out of it. Singles match for the Intercontinental title. Braun Breaker defends his IC championship against Sheamus. I'm really excited for this match. Sheamus has had an awesome run here in this IC title era, pushing for it. Telling a pretty interesting story. Like, that's the only thing I haven't accomplished. This is what I really want to do. And every time he gets close to it, he doesn't quite get there. And Braun Breaker is just this arrogant badass who is telling him, like, hey, you're not getting this. You're not, this thing right here, not touching it. Not a chance. And so I think, again, interesting story being told with that one. And I think they're going to have, again, to steal the term, banger. I think this is going to be a real banger of a match. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. But again, I just don't see the champion losing here. So I think Braun Breaker ends up getting the victory in this bout. And then we go to the singles match. For the World Heavyweight Championship, it is Gunther taking on Jey Uso. I think the very important part of this is making Gunther feel like a big deal. Wasn't featured on the first Netflix. Wasn't featured on, I guess he was in the title match in Saturday Night's main event, but he wasn't in the main event. And it was in a triple threat, and it was a lot more about the Judgment Day, than it was about him. So this, I think, one of the things that it needs to accomplish is make him feel like a big deal. So we'll see if they can do that here this weekend. But also, like, from a match standpoint, because no one believes that Jey Uso is going to go in here and win this championship. So you have to get the crowd to believe at some point, even if it's only once, that Jey Uso is going to win the World Heavyweight Championship. If you can get that, then you probably have a really solid match. So it is make Gunther feel like a superstar, make Jey Uso feel like a threat, and thus make him feel like a championship level main event guy, and you'll have had a pretty successful night. Overall, it is obviously overshadowed by the Royal Rumble, and with everything that's been going on Netflix and everything like that, I am not anticipating a fantastic number for this when all is said and done, but I do think we have 4 or 5 very entertaining segments ahead of us here on Saturday Night's main event, and that's kind of all you want from a fun network special like this leading up to the Rumble. That is going to do it for everything today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in throughout the week, doing all of these previews and recaps and everything like that. I'll say that the start to 2025, that this has been the best, like, 2-week stretch Couch Potato Diary has ever had as a podcast. So thank you, everyone who has been downloading, listening, and all of that. Greatly appreciate it. It's awesome to see those numbers everywhere, kind of trending up in the right direction. It has been a blast chatting with everyone here on twitch.tv/primetimepk this week. The conversations we've been having, like, got 2 real segments out of everything from the chat, and a real good discussion today on everything with the Calgary Flames. So thank you to all you guys for all the support and everything. That this whole solopreneur thing or whatever can be a little bit of a grind, and so to see things go in a positive direction, I greatly appreciate everyone's support. As always, presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca. Got some great Calgary swag up there for you guys. And check out swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PK Primetime for 25% off. Gonna be back here one more time this week. Later on today, another 2-stream day, as we continue our rebuild with the Calgary Flames. We'll talk some Flames and Sabres, get ready for the hockey game tonight, and just have some fun playing some video games. So later, Toxic, later, everyone in the chat, later to everyone. And I will see you in a few hours, play some video games. Bye.